Here with their brain power and some answers, Dr. Mike Dawson, a cognitive scientist at the University of Alberta's Department of Psychology, and Ray Bilodeau, marketing professor at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. Good evening, both of you, and welcome to Alberta Primetime.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Mike, when you realize that you have no idea what a close friend's phone number is, maybe even some of your own, because your contact list remembers it for you, isn't the obvious conclusion that we are not exercising our brains as previous generations did?
Well, that's probably true, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're exercising them less. We're just doing things differently. We're taking advantage, I would say, of current technology to offload some things. When you think about it, memorizing all those numbers may not be all that useful, particularly if you can have them external. Maybe what would be better is to know where they are and be able to get at them quickly.
So memorizing how to get there.
Exactly, yeah.
Ray, what do you think? Is more technology having us use less of our brain power, or, as Mike says, are we doing things just differently?
Yeah, I think we're just doing things differently, and we're not necessarily using less of our brain power. I think we're helping, in business, for example, we're helping our business leaders make faster, more effective decisions, right? And so think of it like big data. So we have a whole bunch of information coming at us, and so how certain are you about the first couple pieces of the puzzle versus the last piece of the puzzle? How fast were you able to make the decision where that piece went in, and how certain were you with that decision?
So we're jamming a lot more information, if anything, into our brains in a quicker period of time.
Well, I think we're sorting through a lot of information, and we're making some decisions based on that information, and hopefully our business managers are making faster, more accurate decisions as a result of the information that they have.
Is that necessarily a good thing, though, or can there be information overload? Are we doing ourselves a disservice with the incredible flow of information our gadgets give us?
Well, I think that the one thing that we have to learn is how to choose the information that we have access to. I mean, there's lots of information out on the internet, but not all of it's worthwhile. In fact, maybe much of it's not worthwhile at all. So we have to be able to make decisions about what's appropriate information to use, what's accurate information, and I think those are the sorts of skills that we're not offloading to the technology. So the technology is letting us access lots of information, but we're using new kinds of judgment to decide which information to actually use once we had access to it.
And the reality is that it's counterintuitive that with more information, we're actually able to make faster, more accurate decisions. And think of that puzzle example for a minute, right? You got all of that data, all that information around you, but you just need to answer or put that last piece of the puzzle in right there, right? But with more pieces of the puzzle, you're able to make a faster, more accurate decision. That's a win. That's a win for the business people, but it's counterintuitive to think that way. With more information, our decisions are actually faster and more accurate, and that's fantastic.
What about the idea, though, Mike, that having memory is a good thing? Right now, with Google especially is a great example. It's just right there. You don't need to think that hard.
Well, for sure, memory is important. It's been important for thousands of years. But interestingly enough, even the most ancient techniques for having good memory relied on external cues. So there's a technique called method of loci, where you'd go through a well-known building, say a house, room after room after room in a set path, and you'd place ideas down. So you're using this external world as a memory guide.
So external world has just changed. It's now in the palm of our hands.
For sure, right? I think that the key thing, psychologically speaking, is that the mind may not be something that is completely internal. There's a view in cognitive science called the extended mind, which says that the mind is sort of bleeding out into the world. And it could be that what we should be learning with technology is how to take advantage of it to become, as we were talking earlier about, making better, faster decisions with more information.
But perhaps we're also missing a lot of the external world. You see a lot of people living their lives like that.
You're on the bus every day, for sure.
You know, and the reality, sorry, Mike, but
That's okay.
I think to me, I mean, we are just specializing in the world we want to live in. I don't necessarily need to interact with everybody else on the bus. I'm enjoying my world. And in fact, maybe I'm on a forum where there's other like-minded individuals like me, and we're all having a conversation
so
on that
your window
forum.
is on Africa or
right.
some
and so I'm having
idea.
a specialized conversation as opposed to just a passing conversation
Okay.
about the ad or the weather or what have you.
An interesting argument.
Yeah.
What about the flip side of smart technology, the multitasking it gets us doing? Do you or your kids watch TV, listen to an iPod, chat with friends, and shop online all at once? It's common. Is technology changing us, even damaging our ability to focus on one thing? Tell us what you think. Follow the contact links on albertaprimetime.com, and we're back with our panel in 90 seconds. Welcome back to Alberta Primetime. We're debating whether smart devices that have taken over our world are making us dumb. Mike, with the convenience of high-tech gadgets, we're often multitasking. You can watch TV, correspond with a friend, shop, download music, all at the same time. Is multitasking good for us and our brains or not?
Well, I think there's a lot of research that basically shows that particularly young people think they're really good at multitasking, but multitasking in general doesn't help your performance. Whether or not the current technology is encouraging that, I think that could be debated. I don't think it's necessarily the case that for instance, a smartphone is any more distracting than the hi-fi was when I was a kid,
right.
For instance, things like that.
Going way back.
But yeah, for sure. I guess the one thing about them is the portability. I mean, I know from university lecturing,
there.
right, that you have kids in the lecture hall with the computers open and the phones open, and you hope they're taking notes on your lecture.
Are you listening to me?
But,
answer that question for us, Ray. What is it, perhaps, or not, about these devices that does lure you into multitasking?
Well, we all feel a need for love and belonging. Maslow kind of showed that, in that we feel this no different than you have a need for food, clothing, shelter. You feel a need for security, right? Feel a need for love and belonging, and feel good about yourself, right? So it's essential that we use those smartphone devices in a way that's helping us. So in Mike's lecture hall, for example, if they're looking up a term maybe they're unfamiliar with, then that's exactly the proper use of that. If they're looking up an example of cognitive science, as Mike's describing something, that's exactly a good purpose for the technology that can really enhance their learning. They find maybe a YouTube video that's talking about what Mike's talking about.
But waiting for your friend to say they like your new jeans or not.
Yeah, right? So that's back to that love and belonging. Ooh, we belong because we're both wearing the same kind of jeans, we're all buddies, and you're really relying on that.
Can we use technology that we have today to boost our brains? Can we use it to exercise our brains?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look at a website, for example, like Coursera, where you get a whole bunch of different institutes offering mega online open courses that is just available for people to brush up on whatever it is they want to be their field, their expertise. And there's some fantastic courses out there that they can take for free. And then when they want to specialize, we have all of our great post-secondaries in Alberta that they can go to specialize, earn degrees, earn accreditation.
And ideas on that?
Well, I think there's a really cool example of this in high school in Nashville. There's a science teacher. His name is Adam Taylor. And a year or so ago, he discovered that there were a whole bunch of scientists on Twitter, which was a surprise to him. And now what he does is once a month, at a set time, he has a Twitter conversation involving his students, some students from other high schools, and scientists from all over the world. They pick a topic. They have a few set questions that sort of organize the discussion.
So a conversation
and
in your pocket.
It goes on for an hour, and it's just great.
You've also used the concept, Mike, of scaffolding to explain how we're using smart technology in our thinking.
Right.
Explain that.
Cognitive scaffolding is literally where you take some cognitive component, which you might ordinarily view as being internal, mental, and you move it out into the world. So the obvious example is using external things like smart devices or books or notebooks to serve as an external memory. You can have other devices, even graphical devices that are easy to use, but the world, instead of just storing the information, actually answers a question for you. It manipulates the information. And in
so it involves others?
No, well, it could. You could have group cognition. Really excellent examples of this are in navigating ships. Typically for say, a U.S. naval vessel, there's actually many different people involved in performing various navigation functions. And they have an external world where they're all updating information, and that external world is the model that's being used to actually steer the ship.
Wow.
They're all
a little
contributing.
more high-tech than our new iPhones or Blackberries.
Well, a little more, maybe, yeah.
Overall, then, Ray, you're not worried that we're doing ourselves a disservice adopting so much of technology, bringing it into our lives? You see it as a good thing?
It's just a tool. And the technology is just a tool. How you choose to use the tool could be a great thing, could be a bad thing. Right. I mean, the reality is that if you're trying to multitask a whole bunch of different things at the same time, you're probably doing none of them very well.
Okay.
So that's the cautionary tale for you. Use the tool to help you achieve what it is you're trying to achieve, and focus on that for a long period of time. Practice focusing on things. Practice focusing for 20 minutes, staying on one topic, and then use that technology to help you achieve that goal.
People might not realize how hard that is to do, to break their habits. Thank you both for your time tonight. Dr. Mike Dawson is a cognitive scientist in the University of Alberta's Department of Psychology, and Ray Bilodeau is a marketing professor at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, better known as NATE.